Hey everyone, I am your astrologer Wonder Girl, taking you to new heights. This is your astrology horoscope for the new moon in Libra, which happens on Friday, October 16th, 2020 at 3:31 p.m. Eastern Time or 12:31 p.m. Pacific Time, depending upon which part of the country or really which part of the world that it is that you are located in. Now, what I think this new moon in Libra is really all about is about us standing on the precipice of big shifts in our lives that are about to get going, more fully happen. Okay, it's really about that. Notice I said it's not us in the big shifts. It's not the big shifts happening. It's about us standing on that precipice, getting the eagle's eye view, so to speak, of what is about to occur, for better or for worse, and of what in our life is going to change that we've really been trying to get to for quite some time. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. If you want to hear more about that, please stay tuned because we're going to hop into it right now. Before we get going though, I do want to place where the new moon is on the chart so that you can see it and follow along with me. So I'm going to do that. The new moon on the chart is going to be right here. How do I know that it's a new moon? Because we have the sun and the moon at about the same degree and in the same sign, all right? In the sign of Libra. So that's how I know it's a new moon. When the moon conjuncts the sun, that's what it is, okay? What are new moons all about? Well, new moons to me are all about fresh starts or new beginnings. A fresh start or a new beginning that defines really a theme that we're going to be working out, especially top of mind for the next 4 weeks until the next new moon, and a lot of times even 6 months after this until the full moon in this sign occurs, all right? But it's going to start a new theme that we're putting our focus in at this time. What are we putting our focus in now, especially for these next 4 weeks? Well, Libra. What does Libra have to do with? Libra has to do with, first of all, relationships. That's just what everyone thinks of when they think of Libra, has to do with that. So one thing that we could be starting to put more of our focus in now, new moon in Libra at this time, is how we can have better relationships or fit other people into our lives in some way, shape, or form. What else does Libra have to do with? Well, Libra is also the sign of the scales, has to do with balance. So another thing we could be trying to do at this time and for the course of the next 4 weeks is not only relationships and figuring out how to integrate people into our lives in better and healthier ways, but can also be as well about how we can bring more balance back to our lives moving forward. One other thing that Libra also has to do with as well is a word I've been using a lot lately on my website, is the harvest. It has to do with harvesting the results of our past efforts. Why does Libra also have to do with harvesting in addition to those 2 other things I just said? Because Libra is a cardinal sign. Cardinal signs start seasons. And because Libra starts the fall season, especially in Western astrology, which is what I do, which is based on the hemisphere in which fall is currently happening. So this is why Libra also has to do with the fall season or with harvesting. With harvesting the seeds that we planted earlier in the year or at other points, typically around Aries season, planting season. Okay, and it's now about seeing those things we did then start to more fully manifest in some way or come to completion, especially after a full moon in Aries last month, so that we can move on. All right. So what that means, before I move forward, adding more pieces, just to repeat, is that what is going on at this new moon in Libra, which is going to define the next 4 weeks, is that we are putting our focus in how we can have better, more balanced relationships or healthier relationships, how we can balance our lives in general with or without relationships, and also about how we can make some of our past efforts actually start to manifest in reality more and more and more as time moves on. Okay. That's what this new moon is all about in a very general, biggest way I can give you. Now, before I go forward and give you more specifics, though, and more details about what this new moon in Libra is about, I do like to go backwards, of course, to give you more of the context of how we got here so that you can see a clearer picture. And in order to do that, I'm going to go back now, especially to the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter stuff that's been going on in Capricorn for quite some time. I'm going to go back to that because that is a very big alignment that's been going on and because it's a very rare one that does not happen that often. That's defining everything else. So I'll talk about this. What is this about? Well, this has been about us trying to change Pluto, the structure of our lives, Saturn, to be something new and different, Jupiter, that ideally is better. Okay, and it's about that change that really started since April of 2019, Aries season, planting season, back in 2019, when Saturn and Pluto almost came conjunct for the first time in like 3 decades. So what happened in April of 2019 is that we were trying to change our life to be something different and better for us than what it has been for the past 3 decades, so that it can be something else for the next 3 decades or so, until Saturn and Pluto come conjunct again. Who knows where Jupiter will be at that time? But so when Saturn and Pluto come conjunct again down the line. Okay, why were we trying to change our life since April of 2019 to be different? We were trying to change it since then because what our life used to be, we either did not like, wasn't working for us, or we've just simply outgrown it and we want other things. We want other things in order to experience and grow and learn from moving forward, right? And I do believe that we have arrived. I do believe that around the last solar eclipse that we had in the June of 2020, a few months ago, which was right here on the summer solstice, the beginning of the summer season, that did occur. I do believe that somewhere around June of 2020 of this year, the new moon solar eclipse in Cancer, that did occur, that we were able to finally change our lives to be something different, that we've been trying to make it be for quite some time. But even though we were able to, in June of 2020, at that solar eclipse in Cancer, to change our lives to be something different and better, I still feel as though something was missing, or it wasn't able to fully complete. We weren't able to fully feel as though things were different, even though they were. And because of that, we spent, especially last new moon in Virgo, fixing some things that were keeping us stuck from fully feeling the change that was already here, that had already arrived. And now that we have fixed some things last month, we now get to the new moon in Libra, which is about us starting to see, now that we fixed some stuff preventing the change from more fully happening, now we get to this new moon in Libra, which is about us starting to see more of this different experience in life that we've been trying to get to start to be harvested, or in other words, start to manifest more and more and more in real ways. Now that the change is here, and now that we've fixed the things that were stopping us from moving forward, okay? Not only are we at this new moon in Libra starting to see more of our efforts to change our life to be different start to manifest or be harvested more and more and more, because we fixed some things that weren't getting us to where we needed to be to fully allow things to come in. Not only are we doing that at this time, but we're also Libra, trying to figure out where relationships fit in, to this new version of ourselves, to these changes in our lives that we have been making that we're now starting to harvest. We're also trying to figure out what is this way that the relationships factor in to this new life that is now starting to come. Not only that, but we're also as well with the Libra trying to find some sort of balance. New balance or new normal in this different space, as well as everything comes together. So that is more of the context of what is going on at this new moon in Libra. Just to repeat one more time, to bring even more of this story together, now that I've given you more information, what do I think is going on at this new moon in Libra? I think at this new moon in Libra, we're starting to see more and more and more of our past efforts to change our lives for the better start to manifest and start to be harvested, because we fixed some things in the past that weren't working to get us to this different place. Not only at this time are we starting to see more things from the past that we've been working towards be manifested and harvest, but we're also as well trying to figure out how relationships factor into this new life and into this harvest that is now coming together. Not only that, but we're also as well trying to find a new balance or a new normal in our lives too, as we bring everything else together. Okay. Now, before I move forward, there's one thing I want to note. This is a new moon. What are new moons? They're about beginnings. They're about starting things. They're not about completing things. They're not about things being done. They're not about things being finished. So this isn't like the harvest being complete. We know the harvest being complete. This isn't relationships being complete. We know where relationships fit in. This is not balance already being restored. This is not that. This is the start. It is simply the start of those things. It is the start, the very, very small beginning of things manifesting. Not all at once, not fast, especially not this year. Well, we've got Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in Capricorn. Not fast, not all at once, But slowly, this is the start of that, slowly starting to see more things manifest. It's going to take at least another month, and I think a few months after this until December and January in order for things to come together. We're also slowly starting to figure out how relationships factor into this and how we can find our new normal and our new sense of balance. Okay. So don't expect everything to be done now, and don't expect to know how everything's going to play out. There's still more things and more time that needs to be done and that needs to occur before everything comes into place. All right, so that's what I'll say there. Now what I'm going to do is, now that I've caught you up as to what's kind of going on now and what's going on in the past, I'm now going to zoom back to give you more details about this new moon in Libra and about this point in time. Okay. In order to do that, I'm going to talk about the specific aspects that the new moon in Libra is making and the other aspects that are astrologically that are going on at this time. So I'll start there. We've got the new moon here in Libra. Where do I want to go first? Maybe I'll go here. The square that this new moon is making to Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in Capricorn. What do I want to say about that? Because I did kind of just explain that. Like, that is what I just explained. What this means to me is that, right, this new moon in Libra is about us starting to see more of our past work manifested and fit more of our relationships into the picture as we move forward. Okay. But what's the main point? There is a point that I want to say here. This is a bit of a scary alignment. I'll say this. This is a bit of a scary alignment, and this is a bit of a frustrating one because it is a square, which is hard, and because this is Pluto and Saturn, which is typically a malefic planet, both of these, which are typically malefic planets, and Jupiter, which doesn't function so well if Saturn's not functioning so well. I see Saturn and Jupiter correlated. Jupiter can only function as far as Saturn's functioning. If you have a very low functioning Saturn, Jupiter's not going to function so well. But if you work Saturn out and it's functioning highly, then Jupiter's going to be much more beneficial for you moving forward. So Jupiter is kind of tied up in the Saturn-Pluto stuff as well. So this can bring a lot of fears, Pluto, a lot of insecurities, fears, subconscious worries, anxieties that it is that you have that may feel heavy, Saturn, and that may feel very restricting. Why could we have a lot of subconscious fears, worries, anxieties that could be heavy and restricting? Because this is just the beginning of the harvest. This is just the beginning of a lot of other things in our life that are going to shift from here on out. And because we don't quite know how things are going to go. We don't quite know where things are going to lead us and what things exactly are going to look like once we start to do more of the harvest and once we get messier with relationships to figure more of this stuff out. We don't really know. We know that something's going to change. We know that something's going to be different, but we don't know what. That's bringing fears and anxieties. The way that I see it is thinking about the harvest. I like to envision the harvest of like what that would be if I were a farmer, which I'm not, which I don't know anything about. But I like to envision a farmer who's about to harvest a lot of his crops that he planted earlier in the year or otherwise. And I envision that what's going on right now at this new moon in Libra is that we are all farmers overlooking our crops, overlooking all of the hard work that we've put in since really April of 2019 to change our life, to overcome old chapters and to move forward. And we are like farmers looking at those crops, at what we did. Okay. From a distance, it's like we're a farmer looking out his balcony. If farmers live in places that nice, so a farmer looking out our balcony, overlooking our farm, overlooking our crops. And as that farmer of our lives, we're looking at the work that we've done in our crops, and we're overlooking it, and we're saying which crops harvested and which crops didn't. Which of the work from our past is going to be successful and which of the work from our past isn't. And us being farmers standing on above looking at our crops, there's only so much you can see. When you're looking at your work and your crops from a distance, there's only so much you can see. You can't really see the details. You can't see if some bugs ate through your tomatoes. You can't really see how many squash grew on this thing, you can't really see. You just have a general sense. And I feel like that's where we are at this new moon in Libra. We are farmers looking at all the seeds that we have planted since April 2019 to change our lives. And we're looking at how they've grown in weird ways since then to take on a different life and to move us forward in ways that we need. But we're looking at these crops from a distance, and there's a part of us that's excited. Maybe I should mention that. There is a part of us with the Jupiter that's excited. What tomatoes do I got today? What did I plant? What potatoes am I going to be enjoying all winter from my past? There's a part of us that's excited. Look at all my crops. But there's another part of us that's like, but oh my gosh, when I get closer, what if my tomatoes are spoiled? What if my tomatoes are spoiled? Or what if this didn't grow in the way that I want? Or what if this happened? Or what if a wolf came in the middle of the night and ate all these things that I was planning for? You know, there's this thing about this that we're kind of worried about. Not only are we like worried about what actually is going on once we go down to the fields to see what has been working and what hasn't been working, but there's also a part of us as well that's a bit worried about having to work the harvest. That's a bit worried about us having to go down to the field to separate the wheat from the chaff, to separate the fruit from the tree or from the plant. There's another part of us too that's also worried about the work, worried about the effort that we're going to have to take to separate these things and to move things where they need to go as well. There's another part of us that's like, oh my gosh, not only do I not know where exactly still all my past efforts are going to get me, but there's still a little bit more effort that I need to make in order to get the goods. In order to get the goods in my own life, to get more things going and to see more things be manifested and be harvested moving forward. But there's also going to be more work still to figure out the relationship component, more work still to figure out where the relationships fit into what's going on. Because how do you know where relationships are going to fit if you don't know what you're harvesting? So there's also, if I wanted to talk about relationships as a separate entity from the harvest and talk about them separately, there's also a part of us too that's not just worried about what did I actually harvest and what did I not, because it looks different from afar than it's going to look up close. And I got to actually do work to separate these things to make these happen, to continue getting more stuff going, especially with Venus and Virgo. But there's another part of us too that's also like worried about how relationships fit into this harvest that we haven't completed yet. We're also worried as well about how relationships are going to fit into the results of our efforts, which we haven't fully seen up close yet. And we're worried about that as well. Not only worried about what we're harvesting, but worried about how we fit relationships into something that we ourselves don't even really know yet and are still trying to figure out. And it's bringing a mix of emotions. Optimistic. I don't know if optimistic is the right word to use. Excited in one way and scared in another. Scared in another way. That could be a bit of a challenge. High highs, low lows, don't know what to feel, all over the place, okay? In addition to that, with the Saturn influence, we're having to make choices. In addition to the emotions being all over, right as we feel we're on the edge of harvesting some things and figuring out how relationships factor together, aren't kind of... Right at that, we also have to make some decisions with the square to Saturn. We also have to make some decisions as well about how we want to approach the harvest, about how we want to approach manifesting things in our lives to get things going a little bit more, to see more of our past efforts come together. We also have to make decisions as well about what we want to do with relationships while we harvest things and while we get things together too. And that could be hard. You know, it could be hard to make decisions about how to harvest our past efforts and incorporate relationships into our plans, especially if we haven't harvested things, especially if this is our first crop, especially if this is our first time as a farmer, you know, because this type of harvest that we're seeing now is a harvest that has not occurred in at least 3 years in our lives, because the last harvest season, the 35 last harvest seasons that we've had, new moons in Libra, have not occurred while Saturn and Pluto has been conjunct. So this is not your average harvest. This is not our average manifesting things. This is a very large harvest, or not only large, a very unusual type of harvest that's bigger than the others that's going on. So there could also be some frustration there where we feel that we have to make decisions to get this harvest going and to integrate relationships into it when we have never dealt with a harvest to this scale in this way, to this extent as we move forward. So there's a part of that. I don't know how to work this harvest. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to harvest things. I don't know how to factor really. I don't know, but we're having to make decisions anyways, even if we don't know. We're having to go down to the farm slowly. We're having to come off our balcony or come off that porch view of our farm. And we're having to get messy. We're having to get messy in the crops, to wade through the trees and the leaves and the cornfields, to start somewhere. Like if I were a farmer and if I were going to pick crops, I don't know what I would do if it was my first time. Like I am not outdoorsy. I like to camp. I will say that, but I don't do it that often. And I'm not really that athletic. So seeing me picking some corn in the fields would be a sight to see, especially not having done it before. I wouldn't know what to wear. I'd be wearing the wrong thing. I wouldn't know what to do. Knowing me, I'd be very frustrated, but you just got to start somewhere. When you're harvesting a crop, you got to start somewhere, and you got to start the best you know how, picking the tomatoes off the tree, digging the potatoes out the ground, doing whatever you do with the corn. You got to start somewhere. And I think, and you got to figure out too, your farm hands. What are you going to do with your farm hands? So sorry, I know this is a very long metaphor, but I think that's the best way that I know how to describe this right now, especially while Mercury is currently retrograde, is that we're having to figure out how to get the harvest going, to make all our past efforts from the past take off. And we're half excited, we're half scared because we don't know how things are going to play out, and we feel overwhelmed here. Overwhelmed because we don't know what we're doing, and we have to do it. We have to try to make things harvest, and making things harvest is going to require us to get our hands messy so that we can see for sure what worked and what didn't, and separate the wheat from the chaff and get our little piles going. Okay, and that brings me back to the farmhand. Now that I kind of caught everything up, that brings me back to the farmhands. Not only do we ourselves have to see what we harvested and get messy, but we have to figure out, do we want a farmhand to help us with the harvest? Do we want someone else to help us with the harvest? And in what way? And in what way does the farmhand help us with the harvest? Because if someone else helps us with the harvest to see our past efforts manifest, then that means that they want to get paid for their effort. They want to be a part of it. They want to be a part of it, that they may not part of the reaping of the harvest when they may not have even sowed the plants, planted the plants to begin with. So there becomes a whole other question here of, do I want help with the harvest? And by who? And if I incorporate another person into helping me, what are they entitled to, and should they? Is it fair? Libra, is it fair for them to be entitled to these things? And do I want them, with Mercury and Scorpio, to be entitled to the work that I've done and the things that I'm trying to get? And do they get it? Do they get what went into this? So there's a lot of stuff like that that's going on. It's very Little Red Hen. I think in one of my April 2019 videos, or right around April 2019, which is planting season, I gave that metaphor of the little red hen who's trying to bake some bread, and she goes around to everyone saying, hey, I'm gonna bake some bread. Do you want to help me bake some bread? Around April 2019, and each of the farm animals says, no, I don't want to bake some bread. I don't want to do it. I won't help you. And then she does it herself. And when she goes to bake the bread, and when it's done, all the farm animals show up. Hey, I'm ready for some bread. And it's like, well, you weren't really there. So there becomes a part of that now with the new moon in Libra that also factors in. We got a harvest we're working with. After all, we got to see what happened. We got to see what's going on. We don't know yet what we've harvested. We have to work it. We have to work the harvest. We're scared. We're excited. We're nervous. We're worried. We don't know what's going to go on. And not only do we not know what's going to go on, but we don't know who should help us take part in the harvest and who should reap the benefits of it and how everything with other people is going to shake out afterwards. And that's creating mixed emotions, yes, if I haven't made that clear. And it's also bringing up at certain points anger and frustration directed outwardly at other people and directed inwardly at ourselves. Why? Because not only is this new moon square the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter stuff, but it's also opposite Mars and Aries as well. And opposition to Mars is also a hard thing because opposition is a hard aspect. Mars is a malefic planet and it's retrograde and it's home sign. So this is also a lot of anger and a lot of frustration. Why are we perhaps angry at ourselves or other people? We're angry because we do not know the answers and because we got more things we need to do in order to get things going, ideally from a better trajectory now that we've fixed some stuff in the past, but we still have our hands full. We still have our hands full and we still don't know what's going to go on. And I think there's this really anxious energy, okay? Anxious, happy, sad, excited, worried, anxious, don't know what to do, but still got to do it anyways, got to make decisions to figure things out, that I think is just worrying. Not only that, sorry, I'm going to give you some challenging things right after the other, but this is a little bit of a challenging new moon. Not only that, but with Venus and Virgo, a sign it does not like to be in, okay, is making an opposition over here to Neptune and Pisces. What is that? Confusion. Neptune, Pisces, confusion. Confusion about what? About, well, Venus being the natural ruler of Libra, about what we're harvesting, about what we're working with, not only about what we're harvesting, but also confusion, Venus, about who we're becoming too, because we don't know who we're becoming until the harvest is complete, until the stuff has been manifested. Not only do we not know who we are until the harvest is complete and the stuff has been manifested, but we also don't know who we are until relationships figure themselves out as well. So there's a lot of confusion going on about ourselves, about what's happening, about relationships. There's a lot of things that are unknown. Okay, that again is another emotional alignment that could also be hard. And we could also find too here that, do I want to say that a lot of things, we can also feel too here that even if now we don't know, that things are about to be revealed. Because even though this is a hazy alignment, Neptune clouds things, Saturn, which the new moon is in a square to, kind of reveals the truth of things. So there is this sense of this new moon in Libra of I'm finally about to see all my hard work from the past manifest to get to a new chapter in life and where relationships fit in. I'm finally about to see it. Excited, scared, because I don't know where it's all going to go and how exactly it's all going to shake out. And I'm sad and I'm confused because there's so many things I don't know. And because it's all about to reveal itself. I can't see it being revealed yet. I can't see it yet. I still got work to do to reveal what needs to be revealed, but it is eventually going to be revealed. And when it is revealed, not now, okay, because we still have more work to do now and more to figure out about who helps us harvest things, but there's this sense of it. We can't keep the charade up much longer. There's this sense of we can't keep the charade up much longer. We can't keep the illusions up much longer about what has worked and what hasn't. You know, with the Saturn moving direct and the new moon in Libra to square to Saturn, there's this sense of the jig is going to be up soon. I can't lie to myself. Not saying that all of us were lying to ourselves, but there's, or you know, not saying that all of us were, but there is another part of us that's saying, I'm about to know for real what's going on here. And once I know for sure, once the harvest is done, just on the other side of this confusion and anger and frustration, excitement, then I can no longer hide from the truth. I can no longer hide from what I have done and what I haven't done. I can no longer hide from myself and from the reality of the situation. I think that's also some pressure there as well, some pressure there. Okay, on top of that too, we've also got Mercury retrograde and in opposition with Uranus and Taurus, where we could be having some unexpected news and some unexpected conversations as well that come up. So as we harvest, as we get down and dirty to figure out what of our past actions has worked and what hasn't, which is going to be a longer process, very slow, going to take some time and effort as we figure it out and figure out how to bring other people in. As we actually do the harvest, we're going to be surprised. So that's another note to bring in, is not only that at this point in time, we're about to see all our past works be harvested, where the truth will be made known, not now, not all at once, but over time, and where we can't hide from ourselves anymore, but also the harvest, when we do harvest it, is going to not come out in the way that we thought it would. The harvest, once we actually get down and dirty to work it in whatever confusing, weird way we know how, once we actually see the harvest, things are going to take on a weird form. We're not going to realize that what we were working towards for quite some time turned out this way or led to this thing. Some weird things are going to occur, and some weird results of our past actions that we weren't intending or that we weren't planning on. Does that mean it's going to be bad? I mean, some of these things do look to be a bit startling, and this does look to be a bit challenging. Okay. So definitely does look like it can be a bit startling. It doesn't have to be bad. I will say it doesn't have to be bad, but it does look at first like we may not know how to feel about it. We may not know how to feel about it. Okay. And I think that's what I'll say there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to talk briefly about some of the inside degrees for this new moon in Libra. I actually wrote a few important points down in my notes, so I'm not going to read it off of a computer screen, but I didn't write the inside degrees. They're by another famous popular astrologer who's no longer alive who wrote those, that you can find online, that I'm just going to reflect on now. Okay. I'm going to start with the inside degrees for 23 degrees Libra, which is what this new moon is at. The inside degree says this: collective cycles are everything here. And we're caught between them, between cycles belonging to none. So what this means to me is that at this new moon in Libra, we are in between two cycles. We are in between the old one finally ending and the new one finally beginning. Has the old one officially ended and has the new one officially begun? As much as I want to say it was that new moon solar eclipse in Cancer, and as much as I maybe did say it was at that time, I still think we're caught in a purgatory. I still think we're caught in a purgatory. The old hasn't really ended. The new hasn't really begun. At this new moon, we are in the purgatory, or we are standing on the cliff, on the precipice, looking out at it. It says this also: changes are coming. The air is buzzing. No rest or quiet. Nervous, on the verge of astounding things, but held poised at the edge. Okay. Obsessed about where we are moving towards or going, but we don't know yet. We're gathering impressions towards the harvest, staying tuned for its developments. Okay. So that to me is more confirmation that what is going on here at this new moon is that we are preparing more for more things to be made known and more clear to us, and more things to be made manifest personally and with relationships, none of the answers which have come yet and still need more time. So if this video that you're watching now describes what you're feeling but gives you no answers as to where exactly everything's going to go, that's because it's not meant to. That's not what this new moon in Libra is about. This new moon in Libra isn't about knowing the answers of how everything is going to play out quite yet, even though the answers and the truth and the reality is coming soon, a few months from now. Okay, that's because this new moon is not about the answers. It's about the feeling of something about to shift, and of us trying to figure out how to make the shift to get the ball rolling on that way, and to tilt things towards the harvest. Okay. Another thing I wanted to read as well was the Sabian Symbol, which I don't always read, written by someone else for 23 degrees Libra, because I thought the image of that was very interesting. The Sabian Symbol gives an image for this, like another metaphor for this new moon is this: the cock that crows in the morning. Again, still on the farm, still back on the farm. It says the cock that crows at morning, that heralds new experiences, that gives voice to what is not yet manifested. So that's another thing about this new moon in Libra. It's like the rooster waking us up in the morning on the farm saying, hey, something's coming. A new day is coming. The new day hasn't come yet. what the day is going to bring, we don't know yet, but it says, wake up, there's something that's going to go on here. Wake up, there's something that's about to happen in some way over the course of the next few months, the fall season, which lasts till Capricorn. That's going to be important. Okay. It says something is rising up here, or just on the edge of. Okay. So that's what I'll say there. And that's really all I can say about the new moon in Libra itself. But if I wanted to give you some advice about how to handle this, I looked a little bit further at some of the other inside degrees that happen after this. 24 Libra, and I actually looked too at 23 Capricorn, because that's where the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter stuff is. And I want to give you a few things that I read from that, just to give you some advice about how to maybe handle this time of uncertainty, of being right on that precipice of big shifts happening without them actually happening yet, and without us having done the work to maneuver and massage and cajole them to happen, for the harvest more to come and relationships to be factored in. Okay. And that says 24 degrees Libra, be blown with the wind, adaptable. So some advice I can give you about how to handle this is to be flexible. As more information comes about the harvest, and as you unexpectedly see what harvested and what didn't, be open to change, be open to adapt to whatever comes up. Adaptable is not a word that I would typically think of when it comes to Libra, a cardinal sign. But this is what the inside degree says. And Libra is a cardinal sign, and cardinal signs, while adaptable isn't the word that would have come to me, is an active sign. Cardinal signs start seasons, they start things. So use that cardinal energy to start new cycles, to start being flexible, to start being adaptable, and to shift in the ways that you need different directions as things appear. So that's one piece of advice I can give you about this time. Do not get stuck. Only this can happen in this way. Be flexible as you work things out, because that's going to help you. Okay. Become what the situation needs on demand. Another thing, another piece of advice that 24 degrees Libra says, be present. Be present and participate in the situation. Show up fully. You don't have to, another piece of advice here is not only be flexible, but you don't have to know all the answers. All you have to do is be there and show up and participate. You don't have to know how to harvest. If this is your first harvest, you don't have to know how to make things from the past manifest. You just have to show up and be there. And by you being there, trying to work things out, something's going to come to you. You're going to realize, okay, maybe I'll start here. Okay, maybe I'll start this. I don't know what I'm doing, but maybe I'll just do it because I'm here. What else am I going to do? Show up, be present, be present in the moment as you move forward. There is a part of me that wants to think about, that wants to encourage you to think about the future, that wants to encourage you to think long term, because the new moon isn't a square to Saturn, and because we got a lot of planets that this new moon is squaring in Capricorn, which is about long-term planning and which is about the future. And while we do need to be careful about how we're manifesting things and be ginger with our relationships so that they don't explode, which they can do at this time, there is a part of me that also wants to suggest to be careful, yes, but that being present is more important than being long-term, because I think a lot of the long-term stuff should have already happened. A lot of the long-term planning should have already been there. And because a lot of the long-term planning should have already been there, which is now what we're trying to harvest, I think I'm going to have to say, if you have to prioritize one over the other, I would be flexible and be present. Don't worry about how things are going to, just be present and get busy working with what you can. Okay, try to be gentle, but be present. Okay, do not disappear at this important time. All right. Other pieces of advice. 24 degrees, the Sabian symbol for a Libra, says this is a point in time when a new strength is shown, a new faculty is created, or a new technique is needed and arises, though we may not consciously understand it. So another thing that I want to suggest here is not only for you to be adaptable and to be present, but to not be afraid to adopt a new mode of being in your life, which is really what I think we've been trying to do, and a new mode of functioning in life. And don't be afraid to exercise a new muscle, a muscle that you haven't exercised before. Not that it's totally reinventing the wheel, like we're not all of a sudden going to grow an extra muscle. We have our muscles, but maybe exercise a muscle at this time that you're not used to exercising. How most days you go to the gym. I don't really go to the gym a lot, but how most days when you go to the gym, you're like leg day. Like everyone has their favorite thing they like to exercise, or their part of their body that they feel like needs the most work. So it's like, in my opinion, every day is leg day, and like maybe some stomach days, and this is saying maybe try arm day today. Maybe work in the harvest. Maybe exercise your arm muscles. Do some things. Exercise a different muscle, than what you've exercised before. Maybe some of you need to create new muscles or use props that you don't. But try something else. Maybe some of you need to exercise new muscles, and maybe some of you need to just work a part of yourself that you haven't worked before. Maybe it's actually both instead of one or the other. Another piece of advice I can give you. Now I looked at 23 Capricorn, where the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter stuff is. Another alignment that says be present. Another thing that this inside degree says, have intense and deep self-awareness. Maybe this moment isn't really so much so that we can force things, and maybe this intense moment of being on the precipice of something is so that we can be self-aware of the cycles that we've been a part of and of the cycles that we need to break. And not so much about doing the things, but in being aware of what's going on so that we can adapt and figure out what that new muscle is or that new technique moving forward. It also says this, bring an energy. I can't read what I wrote. What word was that? But I'll skip it. It says, bring energy and attention to a focal point of the true central clarity with meaningful direction outward from here. So another thing that we may need as well is to, once we've gotten that self-awareness, is to try to organize things around an overarching theme of what we hope to create. Okay. So that may also help, not only being adaptable, being present, cultivating a new skill, and understanding more about yourself, but also when the time is right to take all these disparate things that are going on that feel all over and try to maneuver them towards an overarching meaning that can help us bring things together. Okay. And the last thing that I'll say came from the Sabian degrees, the Sabian symbols for 23 degrees Capricorn, which said appreciate. It said appreciate what you've done. So another thing that's a little bit of a softer message, this last one, is to just pat yourself on the back as well. The 23 degrees Capricorn Sabian symbol was about this is the image that it gave, was about a military person who came back from war. And the degree talks about how this person at war could have failed miserably, could have been a bad soldier, or could have been, these things could have happened that were not right. And the 23 degrees Capricorn Sabian symbol says that's not important. Whether you succeeded or whether you failed at the harvest, whether you succeeded or whether you failed in battle is not the point. The point is that you tried your best to do your duty when it was there, is that you tried your best this past year or two, since April 2019, to change your life to be something better and different. So another piece of advice that I can give you is to not be so hard on yourself, and to appreciate what you knew how to do the best that you knew how to do it. Appreciate your work, your effort in the past, even if it didn't come out the way you wanted. Appreciate the fact that you tried the best that you could to get somewhere. Okay? Because beating yourself up now over things really is not going to help. The harvest come any faster, the relationship stuff work itself out, or things go any more smoothly. All right, and that's what I'll say there. Now your card for this new moon in Libra is what? The 7 of Wands upright. And this to me is a card of perseverance. It says, keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. There's still more work to be done in the fields. There's still more people needed for the harvest. There's still more. Don't give up now, because things are about to get interesting. This card is saying don't give up, because still more work needed for the harvest, and because once you start to do the work, you're going to start to see more and more things manifest, and because things are going to get real interesting real fast, especially after that full moon in Taurus. As things come together. Now, the card at the bottom of the deck is the Six of Cups reversed. This is about over-identifying with the past and feeling overly attached to the past. So this, to me, is saying that what we need to do at this new moon in Libra is quit the past, stop identifying with the past, stop romanticizing the past, stop having illusions about the past, stop that. Be in the present, do what needs to be done now, and keep on keeping on the best that it is that you can. And don't look back. Don't look back. Okay? Don't look back. The past isn't coming back. It hasn't been coming back for a long time. And this new moon is saying, don't look back, for real. New moon in Libra says for real though. Like I've been trying to tell you that. Don't look back and keep going, and don't give up. You may still feel like you're attacked a little bit. You may still feel like it's a journey. You may still feel like, but you're almost there. And things are gonna shift soon. Even if some surprises come up before then. So that is your forecast for the new moon in Libra. I know I went long. This is a very interesting new moon. I think it's a very significant one, of which we won't even know how significant it really is until a month or two from now. So maybe that's another point. This is a really significant new moon in Libra, a very big one, but we may not see just how big the effects and the reverberations of this new moon in Libra are until a month or two down the line, especially that new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius coming up in a month and a half or so, 2 months. So be aware that big things are coming, even if it needs another little bit longer to get it together. And even if it takes on some weird twists and turns. So that is your forecast for the new moon in Libra. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube, share it with your friends, comment down below, and I'll talk to you on the next one.